Hello, everyone. This is Z with Unlocking Greatness Podcast. I want to talk to you all today about how gold is purified. And I just need you to trust that I'm going somewhere with this. My goodness, there's been so much that's happened and been going on, especially in the last couple of days with my son getting out of the hospital. And I'll talk about that in a little bit. But God reminded me of something I studied a long, long time ago when I was in the midst of some of the greatest fires in my life. And the Holy Spirit prompted me to research how gold is purified. So let's just talk about that a little bit. I don't have any fancy opening message. I just want to get right to the point. So when gold is sent to a company from the miners, it comes in the forms of these bars, and these bars are called like door bars, D-O-R-E. And the gold is initially only about maybe 70% gold, and then it has silver and some other impurities and things attached to it. So there's different processes that gold has to go through to get purified. I'm just, for the sake of time, going to lightly touch on some of the processes and the things that happen. And You'll see where I'm going in a minute with this, because my heart is feeling this so strongly. The most common process is for gold to be purified in acid. So it's called the acid process. And in the acid process, there's hydrochloric acid and nitrate acid that's used. And so the simplest way to describe this process is the gold is some kind of way submerged into this acid. It's a very, very, very strong acid. So I want you to keep that in mind. Very, very strong. And the gold is in that acid for quite a while until the impurities begin to detach. So just think on that for just a moment. And I'm going to wrap back around to that, but just hang on to that one. That's one process. Another process, not the most common, but certainly the oldest process, is gold being purified by fire. When the gold is purified by fire, imagine a lot of scraps of gold, and imagine them being placed in like a crucible. And a crucible is sort of like a container. And imagine that there's this crucible, I don't know why I said that word, crucible, that goes into a furnace. This furnace can heat up to 2,000 degrees Fahrenheit. I want you to just chew on that for just a moment. 2,000 degrees Fahrenheit. The gold has to go into this furnace, I don't know for how long, but for a long period of time, until it begins to melt. And as the gold is transferred from that into some sort of a container of some sort, guess what happens? All of the impurities begin to float on top of the surface, so that all you're left with is that pure gold. But what's fascinating about this to me is, so far, even in the two processes, I'm going to talk about a few more that I've just explained, the gold had to go through something. It had to sit in this acid, very strong acid, to be detached. It had to be in this extremely hot fire, 2,000 degrees Fahrenheit, to be melted. You ever felt like you've been through something like that? Completely melt. That means the shape that it came in was completely changed. So think on that. Another process that purifies gold is, let me see, we talk acid, we talk fire, electricity. And the electricity process was developed by some man. His last name is Werwill or something like that. I might say the name wrong, so feel free to correct me. Now, this process is pretty interesting because in this process you have like, it's called like an anode. I hope I'm saying that right, A-N-O-D-E. And that's where you have this unrefined, gold. And then you have something that's called like a cathode, C-A-T-H-O-D-E. And that actually contains some 24 karat gold, believe it or not. So imagine you have the anode and you have the cathode. And imagine they're both sort of like suspended in this, what do they call it? It's like it's an electrolyte solution. So you have the anode, both suspended in this electrolyte solution. Just follow me. I'm going somewhere with this. This is going to get good in a minute. And while it's suspended in this solution, there's a strong like electrical current that has to, I'm going to use the word zap it, but it has to pass through it. And when this electrical current passes through, the gold, get this, has to travel from the anode to the cathode. And when that gold travels from one to the other side, so from one unit to the other, the impurities begin to fall into the solution. Now, if you just think on that for just a moment. Oh my goodness, Lord, help me hold this together. First of all, you're already in some sort of an electrolyte solution, which that in and of itself is a lot to deal with. So let's just start there. Second of all, just when you thought you've had enough and you just can't take any more, and wait till I tell you guys what happened to me recently, you'll just be like, Z, my goodness. But just when you thought, Lord, this is really enough, there's an electrical current of some sort. So another shock value, another, let's just say, trauma situation that happens. And that traumatic situation needed to happen in order for the gold to travel from the anode to the cathode. But as it traveled, the impurities began to detach and fall in the solution. There was purpose in that pain. Let's talk about another one before I say some other things I want to say. Another process is called the, I think it's called the Miller, it was developed by a guy whose last name is Miller. So it's called the Miller process. His process is kind of similar in some ways in that, if I remember correctly, his process is use unrefined gold, it melts it down, and then it uses this like, this chlorine gas that passes through it. Now here's what's interesting about the Miller process. When this chlorine gas passes through the gold, it actually hardens it. It hardens everything. It hardens the gold. And get this, it hardens all of the impurities. And the reason why they do it like this is so that the craftsman can then very easily, literally pick apart the gold from the impurities. Think on that for a moment. There was purpose in going through that. And while it created a hardening, the craftsman is able to easily cut away and only grab the gold. And then, I don't know, maybe I'm just overthinking this because this is just the way my mind goes when I think of things and try to relate it to everyday life. But then even when that whole process is over, what's so amazing is it still has to go through some sort of an electrical process as well for even more purification. So you may say, Z, where are you going with all this? I'll tell you where I'm going in a second. In the book of Job, chapter 23, verse 10, he says, but he knows the way that I should take. When he has tested me, I will come forth as gold. Now, if my mother was sitting here with her King James Version, God rest her soul, she would say, I shall come forth as pure gold. Because I read the King James Version as well. What I'm trying to relay over in this is nothing is wasted. Everything that we go through and we experience in some way or another, God is working his good in us. There is a purification of some sort that's happening. Now, we may not always see it, but it is there. So let me drive this home a little bit. And you guys can study the process of how gold is purified more on your own. I strongly encourage you to do that. I actually think it'll really encourage you. Because when I look at all those processes, I just think through, my goodness, sometimes when I'm in temperatures that's so hot, or I'm in what I feel like is an acid situation. And just when I'm just trying to get used to this uncomfortable environment, now there's some electrical currents or shocks that's happening. Now you mean telling me after all of this mess, I got to make a move? I got to make a move? And not knowing in the process of all of that, Lord, though you slay me, yet I trust in you. The process of just, Lord, this is hard, this is difficult, but I'm going to praise you anyway. We are being refined as pure gold. So let me update you on something. Many of you are aware that my son had a bone marrow transplant. There was some ups and downs, but even if that would happen. And I have to protect his privacy, so I can't go into a lot of details. But what I can tell you is this. When I say that my family worked around the clock for days and days and days to get my home together, for him to come home from the hospital, if you've ever experienced anyone getting a transplant or dealing with a lot of chemo, and I won't talk on this for long because I'll start crying in a minute, they have to come home to a very sterile environment. And you just wouldn't believe the things we had to do to prepare. And without going through all of that, because it was just, I'm talking washing the walls down, installing some filtration system in our HVAC system to suck out the air every 30 minutes. I mean, it's pretty intense because he has to be in a complete sterile environment. We finally, the day before yesterday, get him home. And by the way, that's why you haven't seen me post in a while. I think it's been, I don't know, probably a week or two. I can't remember since I posted anything, but we were preparing for him. Finally going to bed, and I'm talking everything on my body was hurting because we'd just been going nonstop for days in a row, just preparing for my son to come home. And it wasn't even 10 hours. And here we were rushing him back to the hospital. And to protect his privacy, I won't go into all the details. I'll just tell you that it was beyond intense. And so it was just yesterday that I'm sitting in the hospital with them. And I wish I can go into the details because you guys would say, Z, you got to be kidding. But let me just say the situation really, really, really escalated tremendously. And at one point, I went out to my car. And I sat in my car. And I said to God, you are a good God. I love you, but I know you love him more. And I said, God, if this is what it's going to take to get the oil out of me, and I'm going to do a lesson on that as well. I'm going to do a lesson on what I mean when I say get the oil out of me. Some of you people, especially ministers and people that's on my channel, know exactly what I'm talking about when I said the oil. And for those of you who don't know what I'm talking about, just think of it in essence of like an anointing or being about your purpose, God's purpose, I should say. And I said, if this is what it's going to take to get the oil out of me, then let thy will be done. Let thy will be done. And I sat there, and to be honest with you guys, here's what's so funny. I actually thought of you guys. I really did. I sat in my car. I'm thinking about the process of gold being purified. And I said, Lord, it don't feel like it right now, but I know you're purifying. I know you're doing something. You're doing a good work in this. I am still going to praise you in this because my mother taught me to praise you in the storms, and I'm not going to stop praising you. I don't have any other gods to go to. There are no others. I mean, if it was, I would go. I don't have any others. You're the only one. And I praise you. And you are still a good God. And so I sat in my car and I thought about you guys, and I thought, God just put you so strongly in my heart. I kid you not, I'm not making this up. And God just put in my heart, you get back on that podcast and you share with them this moment. And that's all I want you to do is share with them this moment. And of course, in the moment, I'm feeling like, man, God, I've got nothing to give. I've got nothing to give them. You know, I have 1,000,001 things on my plate. I'm still grieving my mom. I have for those of you who may not know, I have a company that I run, and I've been absent for a while there because I'm dealing with so many things with my son. And then I've got my son in here fighting for his life. I mean, it was so much at one time. But God put in my heart, share with them this moment. And so I just want to share with you all that even in the moment of when the heat is so hot and the trials are so continue to occur, And I feel that I've been, as I said before, going through a process, whether it's acid or fire or electrical or gas, whatever, all of those different processes I described. In all of those moments, there's something in my spirit, and I thank you, God, for this, that knows that there's a purification that's happening. And that God is strengthening me more and more and more, and showing me that even in this, I got you. I want you to trust in me. I want you to now take it a notch higher. In every situation, there's this, I can't really quite explain it, but there's just something in me. I wish I could bottle up what I'm feeling inside of me right now and put it in a jar and just give it to you. Then you'll know what I'm feeling. But there's something in me that where God reminds me of who I am in him. And that's another thing. I'm going to be doing a post on that as well. I think I'm going to call it, Do You Know Who You Are? So there's something that even in the midst of the greatest heat, which is why I wanted to talk about the purification process of gold, I know that a good work is being done. I pray that this encourages you. I don't know if this message makes any sense at all. Hopefully it does. But I pray that it encourages you to know that no matter what you're going through, no matter what stage of purification that you're going through, please know that a good work is being done. God has not lost control. He's not surprised by things. And there'll be times we hurt, we cry. I mean, trust me, I went to bed, I was like, oh, Lord. Now, I'll be honest, when I did go to bed, God really didn't let me sleep much last night. He got me up from about 2 something in the morning all the way really maybe to 5 something. I only slept maybe 4 hours total. Literally, I just got up, just tears streaming down my face because God just kept pouring into me what he wants me to talk about and what he wants me to say. And just literally just pouring into me scriptures, pouring into me his promises, pouring into me things that I didn't even think about talking about. So just pouring into me all the things that he wants me to say in the podcast to other people. And at some point, and I'm not making this up, at about 4 something in the morning, I said, God, you got to let me get some sleep. Let me get a little bit of sleep. I hear you loud and clear, Father. I will walk in obedience. I will obey. So anyway, as tired as I am, this message is an example of me walking in obedience because God put it in my heart. Get up, get dressed. I need you to get on camera and I need you to speak to my people. So I pray that you study out the process of how gold is purified. And I pray that in some way it's helped you. I love you all. I'm sorry if this message didn't make any sense because I am still kind of a little scatterbrained, but at the same time, I'm walking in obedience. Thank you all in advance for all the prayers. That's what I wanted to say as well. I've received so many prayer requests and so many encouraging messages, and I just want to thank you guys. It means more to me than you'll ever know. But I love you all, and this is Z with Unlocking Greatness Podcast. Bye-bye. Hi everyone, this is Z again. Do not forget to hit the like, subscribe, and the notification button. Bye-bye.